they make it? What do they use?
What do they use?
To make electricity.
Yeah. Well, they're
Electricity machines.
Yeah, they get a bunch of hamsters, right? A whole bunch of hamsters
Like
to
loads.
run around on these, and each of them has a wheel, right? And they get them to run around. I don't know why you're laughing, but I'm
Very serious.
gonna power through. Each hamster has a little wheel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they feed the hamsters lots of, no, not chocolate, that's bad.
No, these
Lots
are-
of sugar.
Yeah, these are your top 5% of hamsters in terms of athleticism.
Right? And they run around these wheels, and as they're running around the wheels, they make electricity. Next question.
But why hamsters?
Hamsters are actually really good when it comes to cost of feeding them.
Yeah.
Very,
Why
very
not
low in
rats?
cost.
Well, rats are a bit yuckier.
Less stamina. Hamsters look chubby, but they're actually...
We did ask the
svelte.
rats, but the rats said no, so it was hamsters.
But then how does it come to our houses?
Now,
Pigeons.
I was gonna say, in my head I was rattling around which bird to use. So the pigeons, right? You've seen pigeons flying around?
Yeah.
Well, they're carrying little bags of electricity.
Oh.
And they're just dropping it off. And, yeah.
Does that sound true?
No.
No, it doesn't, does it?
So, okay, fine. In the last few years, because of animal rights and all that, we have moved away from hamsters and pigeons, and there are a few different ways we've come up with to make that electricity. So one of the ways, so the main way still used is we use this machine called a generator. Okay, that's because you know what the word generate means?
Like to make?
Yep.
Very good.
Good job, Spatika. So a generator, we use that to make electricity.
Do you know a generator?
I don't really know
Yeah.
how it looks, but I know that it means like it makes stuff.
Yeah.
It does. So an electricity generator has two key components inside. Now, one of them, do you know, have you heard of a magnet? I bet you have.
Yeah.
So magnets are massively important when it comes to making electricity. And the other thing is a metal. Do you know what metals are associated with electricity a lot?
Because they're conductors.
Very good. So it's a conductor metal, and it's normally copper.
And steel.
Yeah, So you could use steel as well, certain types of steel, but copper is really good at conducting electricity, and it's cheaper. Actually, you could also use gold, but that would be
It's really not cheap.
That wasn't a
It's
joke.
also expensive.
Yeah, it's super expensive. See, even
We'd
copper
pay a
is
lot.
actually quite expensive, but not as much as gold. So
And water.
and water. Water is a conductor. Yeah. So you have a coil of copper, right?
Yeah.
So basically, a generator would be a magnet, right?
Big magnet.
So you need a magnetic field. So you have these magnets all around this coil of wire,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the important thing is, so you need the coil of wire to do is to move, constantly move around in that magnetic field. There you go. We're making electricity here. Okay.
We're making a wind turbine turn.
Yeah, so that's in a
Similar.
wind turbine, you would have a little tiny, not tiny, but a generator inside it. So you have, as long as that conductor is moving inside the magnetic field, it creates electricity. And the way it does that, because that magnetic field pushes the electrons inside the conductor along the wire. And that's really what electricity is. It's a flow of electrons. Just like how water flows in a river, right? So electricity is a flow of electrons inside that conductor.
Yeah.
And the reason why a magnet can be used to make electricity is actually because of Michael Faraday, who's a very great scientist, discovered that if you move any piece of wire next to a magnet, right, you'd be making electricity inside that coil of wire. Okay? Because electricity and magnetism are actually part of the same force, which we call the electromagnetic force. So it's like you have this one force, and on one side you have electricity, on the other side you have magnetism. And it's kind of like a coin. You know, on a coin, you've got your two sides, heads and tails, right? Right? And the same way, so electricity and magnetism are the two sides of the same force because they both depend on electrons. Have you heard of electrons?
Yeah.
Yeah. So electrons spin. Okay.
Around the protons.
Yeah. So they're traveling around the nucleus of the atom, or kind of like orbiting around the atom, nucleus of the atom. At the same time, they can spin.
Yeah.
And it's the spin, depending on which direction the electron's spinning, that gives something its magnetism. Okay?
Yeah.
And also the movement of electrons is electricity. So they both depend on how the electron's moving.
Yeah.
Okay? And actually, like in a magnet, the reason why it's a magnet and you can feel that magnetic force is because all the electrons, or just about all the electrons in that magnet, are spinning in exactly the same direction. Whereas me, I'm not a magnet, am I? No, that's right. I'm not. I'm not a magnet. That's because all the electrons in my body are spinning in different directions. So that's why I do not have a magnetic field around me. All right? So we use generators. That's how we make our electricity. Now you would take a generator. So the way that we've been making electricity so far has been burning fossil fuels, right?
That's a bit bad.
Yeah, that is a bit. That's not just a bit bad, very bad, right?
We've done that a lot.
So we've been fossil fuels like oil and coal and natural gas. We burn that, use the heat that's generated from that. From burning those fossil fuels to heat up water. You get the water to boil and turn into, what does water turn into when you heat it up?
Steam.
Steam, very good. So you get that steam, you take that steam, take it through pipes, and then on a generator you'd have a fan on there and you blow that steam onto that. It's called turbine. And it turns the coil inside the magnetic field, and that's how that's how we do it with fossil fuels. But then with a windmill or wind turbine, right, you just use the wind straight away to turn the, what do you call them? Rotor?
To turn the...
Yeah, the blades.
What do you call it? The blades?
The blades of the wind
blades.
Yeah, the wind turbine, and that turns the generator. Okay, or you can build a dam on the river, right? And inside the dam you have the generators, and the water rushing through the dam will make that generator turn.
That's the hard part. So the hard part, or the expensive part, and the part that sort of modern and what you call renewable energies are all looking at doing is changing the way we create that movement in a generator, because we got to get it moving.
Earlier I thought that was a generator, but it didn't generate. Just said you generated hamster.
All right.
I like the hamster answer.
The hamster answer.